So we created at that point awareness among the faculty, and the conversations among them are really quite eye-opening for the faculty about where our graduate students really could go and the kind of things they could do. And that at times somebody stopping a graduate program early really is a good outcome. It's okay to leave for the master's and explore other venues and go into different career paths. For the students, it was incredibly affirming, and it created for them a lot of positive energies in the way to look in a different way at the future. And once again, for them too, that early attrition could be a very good decision, and that what they had learned at the time on their campus, that those experiences were still incredibly valuable and helped them shape who they were. They had learned new skills that they could then apply in whatever steps or decisions they made with regard to their future. And what we've now found a few years later is that, contrary to what our graduate students still often perceive to be true, the faculty are telling us nowadays that they are really quite open to the idea of their graduate students pursuing rewarding work outside of academia. But they then add that they don't have the resources and the expertise to help their students find good opportunities outside of academia. And so our planning and career advising service complements more and more nowadays the work of our faculty in seeking both tenure and non-tenure track academic employment, but of course also in helping our graduate students who have decided to pursue employment outside of academia. And the conversations are easier now than they were a handful of years ago. This particular office not only helps our students in advisement and planning, but they're also working very closely nowadays with employers to enable our graduate students to present to employers, well, the employers on campus. We find that it's typically easier to have an employer come to campus for our undergraduate student population because the number tend to be larger. And when we've invited employers to come with a specific focus on our graduate student, that's much harder to do because the numbers tend to be so small. It's quote unquote not necessarily worth their time to come specifically to our campus. So what we're often doing now is while we invite an employer to come work with our undergraduates, that we designate a portion of the time that the employer is on campus to really speak directly to the graduate students as well. In those conversations with employers, there's also a significant amount of conversation taking place with regard to establishing internships at our companies for students at the MA level, but also at other levels of study. And what the staff in this particular office reports is that the more they work with these employers, that the employers are starting to understand better the value of the graduate degree, and are much more open to considering students with different degrees. And this is especially true, of course, for students in the arts and the humanities. It tends to be a lot easier for employers to think about our students with MBAs, those with degrees in the sciences, than it is to see how do I use a student who has an advanced degree in philosophy. How do I use that person? What are the skills? How do we translate the skills that a person has gained into a good role for that person within industry? So we firmly believe and are working very hard in establishing good connections with employers, because it is for us very important in the sort of path forward for our graduate students. We know, and our graduate students continue to report, that they believe they receive an excellent training at my university, that they're able to engage in innovative work, because that's really what drew them already to the University of Chicago in the first place. But for us, it's really important that we continue to ensure this kind of top quality education, that we must constantly examine our efforts and strive for higher and higher expectations of ourselves. And that this work that we're doing now to improve graduate education is invigorating. It's not without its challenges. And finding the solution to these challenges we face is imperative to assuring the eminence of graduate education, not just at the University of Chicago, but of course within all our universities within the United States. Thank you.
Dr. Perry.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'd also like to add my welcome to everyone who's here and to this facility, which is our Foundations Building Welcome Center, and we're glad you're here. Okay, so research has always been important, and so I saw this, someone sent me this video and said, you know, we're preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, that use technologies that don't yet exist to solve problems that haven't been yet defined. And I got to thinking about it. That's always been the case. So research has always been important. So what's changed? The competition, all right, as this video also points out, and I think it's 4 or 5 years old, that the honors students in China outnumber all of our students. The honors students in India outnumber all of our students, so forth and so on. The other thing that's changed is the timelines of change. The frequency of change has really accelerated. And so it seems to me like the goal of having more students involved in research so that they can develop their creative activities and abilities is extremely important. Now, we're a regional institution. We're a master's institution. We think we're good at that. We're proud of that. And we're going to stay that. We're not on the belt moving down toward the airplane gate there. In fact, 2007, NSF did a study of doctoral recipients, and they said, where'd you get your undergraduate degree? And you mark it. And so among master's institutions, we were in the top 5% in the country in terms of numbers of students who got their bachelor's degree here and then ended up getting a doctoral degree. So we're proud of a tradition that we've had here, and we've tried to ramp it up. We're a university of about 12,000 students, about 10,000, slightly over 10,000 full-time. So we've got a lot of part-time. Many of those are either doing baccalaureate completion or are graduate students. But in terms of head count, we've probably got around 2,000 graduate students. One of our 5 academic priorities that we established 3 years ago when I got here was that we would enhance opportunities for undergraduate and graduate research. And so we've seen change there. The numbers of people involved in that, numbers of our students, undergraduate and graduate, participating in professional meetings, making presentations at the National Conference of Undergraduate Research and so forth. We've also enhanced the campus visibility of all that. But we know that we knew we had to do something to get more. High quality, the quality's up to the faculty. I'm not worried about the quality. The question is, how do we get more? So essentially, we decided to work on globalizing our undergraduate and graduate education. And so we work hard on recruiting, and a lot of this, all the credit for this goes probably to Bob Augustine and his team and the faculty, of course. Recruiting widely, recruiting widely, and building those bridges that end up keeping the students coming. So one day I was leaving the library, there was a person at the desk. I introduced myself to her, and she's from Nepal. And there's actually a stream of students from Nepal. And you know how that works. You were saying that earlier about some of your students in graduate work. So that's one thing, is recruiting. But the second thing is competitive tuition, because we have a resident rate and a non-resident rate. So what we decided to do, and with the approval of our board, we changed our tuition structure a bit. We've lowered the non-resident multiplier for international graduate students, and at the undergraduate level, if you have a strong academic record, we'll give you resident tuition. The result of that, we've doubled our new international undergraduate and graduate students this past year, and the way it's looking for spring is looking good too. But the third thing that makes all this work is we have a strength in certain niche markets, if you will. And so we're able to draw students to those strong departments, communications, disorder sciences, for example, and biological sciences, and there are several I could name. So recruiting, competitive tuition, and play to your niche strengths as a master's institution. So this is a conscious decision we've made. We know we're not an R1. We know we're not strong across the board, but we want to prepare our students to either go on to doctoral study or to step into professional careers where they can use their research background. So it seems to me like we got to do 3 things. We got to get the talent, we got to prepare the talent, and then the third thing we have to do is for those students who want to stay here and can make a contribution to our economy, we got to figure out a way to keep them here. All right, they've got to be motivated to stay, but we've got to have things in place to make that happen.